Well, ladies and gentlemen, this seems like a video that was kind of, what's it called? Like long in the waiting? What the hell is the word? What do you say? This video is long in the waiting? That sounds weird. What's the proper way to say it? It's been in the works for a while? Long in the wait. I don't know. I don't know how to say it. But it's a video that I was going to eventually make. How about we just keep it at that? Is rock and roll dead? Right? We've all been wondering. Because normally these great rock scenes and music, they come around every 10 years and it's like, wow, this new thing. You know, the 60s had something, the 70s, 80s, 90s. It's a very multi-layered question. There's not one simple... I'm going to try to cover it all because I've heard people talk about it, or they'll be like, well, it's because it's the record industries, or it's very deep and multi-layered. I mean, very deep and multi-layered. I hope that by the end of this video, I've covered all of it, because I didn't write anything down, and that kind of bothers me, because I know I did a video recently. Here's the thing about writing things down that kind of bothers me. I like writing things down because I don't miss the points. Like, for example, I just did a video of, can you still make edgy art? And I wrote down a whole bunch of points about like Leonardo da Vinci and like the Mona Lisa. But the problem is when I write down a note so I don't forget bullet points, it doesn't seem as spontaneous, and the flow of my conversation slows down because I'm not very good at reading things like a news report. You know how some people, like news anchors, they'll just read it, and in today's, and it sounds very fast and natural. But so when I start reading things off the laptop, it starts going like this, and so it kind of ruins the flow. So I'm just gonna go with the flow and see if I can get all the points out. So but I don't know if I can because it's very multi-layered. So let's see. First of all, let's go with, we'll go point by point to see how multi-layered this is. So people talk a lot about, oh, it's because the record industries. That's the obvious one. So we will start with that. And let me explain that one a little more. You know, people sometimes, you know, art is a very strange thing because a person does something, let's say, you know, a buddy. I know a buddy who's like a pretty good songwriter, and then he just kind of just, you know, writes songs in his bedroom, and but he's good. You think there's something unique and special about him, but you know that nobody will ever hear his stuff and nobody will ever know who he is. And you wonder why that is. And sometimes you think, well, I guess maybe he's just not talented enough, or I guess he just doesn't have this thing that you need. Well, it's even that alone is very strange because, you know, you have a friend in a bedroom who's very talented, he writes songs, and then you grew up with them, but then now you're like both like 90, 100 on your deathbed, and you realize, well, your friend never got discovered, was never noticed. Maybe he just wasn't that good. It's not a matter of that. All the people that you see that are discovered, like, for example, you know, the last great rock scene was like I guess the 90s scene with like the Seattle rock and stuff, right? All that stuff that came out of the 90s. And yeah, you know, there was like, I guess the New York scene of like the 2000s, but that was more like indie rock kind of stuff, you know, like, so let's go back to like the last great rock scene that were like, it was like a huge mainstream thing back in the Seattle days. So you have bands like Nirvana and all these bands, right? So you think, well, Kurt Cobain, this guy was like a genius, right? There's probably a very artistic kind of like Kurt Cobain type guy in many different places in the world right now. You'll never hear of them. You know, we sometimes put these guys on this pedestal like they're these mind-numbing savants that we'll never see again. There's artistic, beautiful, creative people all over the world all the time. But that's not enough. It would be nice to think that like, so right now as I'm making this video, there's probably another Kurt Cobain out there right now who's very talented, artistic, writes his own songs, and he's great. You're not going to hear of him again. Why? because they're just not going to get promoted. That's why no one gives a shit about rock music, right? It's not going to become mainstream. So here's the thing. You think like, well, but no, there's no other Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain was a fucking legend. Well, guess Nirvana was making music before they became legends, or like he became this god. No one gave a shit about them. But then the major record companies decided to promote the fuck out of him. And then he became a god. I love Kurt. He's one of my favorite artists of all time. But he's not this mythical creature. There can never be rock music again because all the legends are gone. No, there's people right now in their bedrooms writing and creating really beautiful art and music, but no one really is going to promote them, right? That's the thing. Because guess what? Nirvana had albums out, and all those Seattle bands had albums out before they all became these rock gods, and no one gave a shit about them. You know when they became rock? Like, for example, Nirvana wrote an album called Bleach. They weren't rock gods then. They weren't on Rolling Stone. No one gave two shits about them. But then MTV and all these radio stations decided to, and the record companies decided to promote the fuck out of these bands, and then they became rock gods. Right? So there is that one aspect of someone has to promote you, right? So that's gone. No one's promoting these guys, and it's not going into the mainstream, right? So the record industry part of it is kind of obvious. No one's promoting these bands. No one's trying to push them into the mainstream. So there's that obvious aspect of the record industries are not doing it, right? So what are some other aspects that I hope I can fucking remember now because I'm going blank. So there's that aspect, right? And then there's also the cultural aspect of today's culture. You see, it's easy to look at older generations and sort of it's very easy to become that older guy who shakes his fist at the younger generation and says, "Oh, all this stuff sucks now. It wasn't like good the way it was." But that's not necessarily gonna really do anything. So when I speak of the younger generations, keep in mind I'm not saying this like as in a way to make it seem like they're less than. It's just the state of evolution. This is so much bigger. This is going to sound very long-winded, and it's going to sound like, okay, you're getting too abstract, but it's just the way it is. So, human culture and society has these points. You have the wild, wild west of human societies where it's like chaos, wild, wild west, right? And then you develop some sort of modern society. Like, let's say the last 100 years, we had some sort of modern society, right? And then after that, once you've all passed that, things get really vanilla. Things get really watered down. It's not bad or good. It's just the way of evolution. It's just the way it works. So we have tribal, materialistic, animalistic societies, and they eventually evolve a little more, and they become, we build these like modern societies that's not wild. We have laws, but then after that, it gets to a point where it becomes so vanilla and so watered down and so inclusive and so tame and so gentle and so loving and so equal to everything that it becomes very vanilla. Now that's nice because we're loving, inclusive, we're all safe. But you know what that's really bad for? For art. I'm sorry, but if you're super safe, and in today's culture, you're just kind of safe and gentle, and you talk in a really slow voice, and you're just kind of like looking at your phone, and everything's cringe, and everything's low key, and everything's like, whatever, and, I'm just trying to be super inclusive, and everything's about we're all nice to each other. That's not exactly spurring, super emotional, heartbreaking art, painful, tragic art. Right, because let's face it, right? It's not a big mystery. Most amazing art comes from pain. and struggle and tragedy. Well, the more we evolve into this super gentle, sweet, loving, neutral community of existence, that kind of art is slowly fades away. That's a huge aspect of it. So it's not just that, oh, well, record companies don't promote it, and it's so multi-layered. So there's, you know, I'm going to say something a bit cuckoo out there, but just take it as a metaphor. It doesn't mean much. But I've always been into, you know, the universe, existence, alien civilizations, people channeling different dimensions. And in that world, there's a very common theme when they talk to like other people from other dimensions, aliens living that are way more evolved than us. They're in awe of our civilization. And people probably wonder, why would these amazing, brilliant, evolved, highly evolved beings from other dimensions and planets, why would they be in awe of simple, stupid human folk like us? Well, they're in awe of us because of the art we create and the creativity we have and the dynamic nature of our existence. Because they've evolved and they've become so vanilla and so neutral, they can't create the kind of art we've created the last how many hundreds of years. It's just not part of their culture. They have other forms of expression, but not like what we've done. Because you need a certain level of dynamics going on in your society that breed that kind of art and that kind of... And let's face it, rock and roll and a lot of different forms of music, they're based on that kind of pain, struggle. Old blues music came from pain, struggle. And the more you water down society and become super neutral, it's great because people are safe and they're loving, but you can't expect that kind of art to come out of that vanilla and that watered down of a society. It's just not going to happen. So why am I mentioning aliens and other? Because they're in awe of us because of that. For the fact that we're so emotional and so... it's such a dynamic place, and we create all these works of art and we do all these things, and yeah, you're always in awe. The grass is always greener on the other side, right? So you're always in awe of things that you don't do or you don't have. And that's another big part. So again, I don't want to sound like that goddamn old guy shaking his, the music now sucks. There's always going to be some sort of artistic expression, right? My last part of this video, I'm going to tell you how it's going to make a comeback. It's going to be in a really weird way, but... So you have a society right now that's sort of more watered down, more kind of like, hey... Because you can't even talk. You can't, like right now, this is aggressive. I got to tone down my voice right now. Hey, so my personal opinion is... Because if you don't, it's a microaggression. We live in a very, like, look at even like really Silicon Valley and all these like younger people, like the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey. You see these guys now, like when they talk, they're like, so, you know, I'm the CEO. They're very tame, watered down, because you can't, so it's like it's not coming from this place of emotion. You're not going to get rock and roll out of, hey, so the way music mimics the society you live in. So if people are more like just looking on their phone and mellow and everything's low-key and chill, is it a surprise that the most popular music right now is mumble rap? Now, I don't give a shit what you think about mumble rap. It's good, it's bad, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's a perfect reflection of people's energy and state of mind right now. They're just kind of on the phone, everything's low-key and cringe, and they just want something to vibe to, something mindless to vibe to. And mumble rap is a perfect representation of that. So it makes sense that that's sort of where it goes, right? Like I said, it's not about, oh, my music was better. It doesn't matter. It's the idea that it just constantly evolves, and the art that we're going to create is very relative and very... close to our state of mind at the time. So if we're in this very kind of state of mind, just kind of glaze over our phones, that's just the kind of music we're going to write, right? So where is it going then? Where is this new resurgence of rock and roll coming up? It's not going to come from people. Are you ready for the next wacky statement? Because I just talked about aliens and other dimensions. The next revolution in rock and roll is going to come from AI. Yeah, that's my last point. Now you're probably thinking, Tony, well, you've completely lost your goddamn mind. Okay, so there was this episode of Black Mirror. It's a very popular show on Netflix. And, they like to ponder these futuristic concepts. And one of the concepts they pondered was this idea. There's this episode of this man and this woman, or boyfriend and girlfriend, and the boyfriend dies. Now, I hope I explained this episode right, because I only saw it once and it's been a while. But the main point is, boyfriend or girlfriend, the boyfriend dies, and I believe the girlfriend really misses her boyfriend, and she stumbles upon this new experimental program where this artificial intelligence, this AI, can scan that boyfriend who died, his social media profiles on Facebook, and scans every search result he ever did and every like and dislike he ever had. And they scan every single possible history of this person, and they recreate them in an AI form. So it's like a simulated version of this person, right? And she gets to talk to him again, and they're hanging out. But after a while, she kind of realizes it's not really him. It's kind of like this watered down simulated version of him. But I believe that's what's going to happen with AI. Let me explain what I mean. So all the famous rock stars that have ever lived, Kurt Cobain, John Lennon, Jim Morrison, all these people, right? I believe when AI gets advanced enough, I mean super advanced, to the point where not only can this AI scan all the history of this person, like take a guy like John Lennon, right? They scan every single moment of data that's ever been created on this person, and they try to sort of simulate it in an AI. But it's going to get to a point where it gets so advanced where it's going to be a universal neural network of all our brains. So it's not just the data that's in Facebook and on YouTube and in articles written by this person, but it's going to scan the general consciousness of everybody and their general opinion of somebody. And that's going to be built into this AI character. So there's always a general consensus of somebody. Like, for example, I'm going to use a really dramatic term, Hitler. When people generally think of Hitler, they think of this mean, evil person who tried to take over the world. So so this AI wouldn't just scan data on Hitler, but they would also scan our brain and get a general consensus of what we expect of this person. So these AI characters, they're going to basically be simulated versions of these rock stars that used to live. Not only from all the data and all the songs they've written, but even our general consensus of this person and what we would expect of them. So let's say this AI generates this AI version of Kurt Cobain. And they have a generated AI concert of Kurt Cobain. And he's doing stuff on stage. And even the stuff he's doing on stage, we kind of, yeah, this is what he would do. Yeah, Kurt would do this. So like it knows even from our expectations of what we would expect this Kurt Cobain character to be like. So you think, okay, so AI will scan all these different rock stars and we'll have a digital AI simulation of them. And these digital AI simulations will write new songs, right? But it gets even crazier than that. I know this sounds fucking crazy. I get it. I understand. But it's going to get even crazier than that, because it's not going to be like, here's a digital simulation of Kurt Cobain. There's going to be AIs that are combination of different people. So have you ever imagined what would be the ultimate musician? Maybe somebody who's got the artistic qualities of Kurt Cobain and John Lennon, but with the musical capabilities of somebody like Prince or Jimi Hendrix, because they're considered like musical geniuses at their instruments. And so AI can combine. It can combine a character. Like you can say like combine Prince, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, and John Lennon into one character. And it's just going to take all their best traits and combine them. So there's going to be these like hypothetical characters that could be morphed into one person, and they can just generate their own music. Now, is any of this shit gonna happen? I don't know. It's just stuff that I think about in my head. Could I be suffering from some sort of early onset dementia? Maybe. I don't know. I guess you never really ultimately know with anything, right? But one thing I know for sure is that rock and roll from people, I don't know. Because if we keep, like I said, if we keep headed into this very sterile, vanilla, super inclusive, I talk in a low voice so I don't, it's a microaggression, and we just keep getting watered down. There's no emotion and pain and art coming from that. So maybe digital simulations could do it. And that's it. That's so my final thought is, when will rock and roll come back? If it does, maybe it'll be AI digital simulations. And that was my final point. I think I basically got through. There's some subtle ones that I think I didn't get through. But generally speaking, that's my thoughts on rock and roll and where it's headed and why it hasn't made a comeback and so on and so on. And keep in mind, it's not about insulting nothing that comes before. Like, oh, this music sucks. All music is a representation of what's our headspace is right now. So yes, mumble rap is popular right now, but like I said, it's no surprise. And whatever happens in the future, the more we become watered down and more vanilla, I think art will suffer more than anything. But like I said, maybe AI will take the torch, and who knows? Who the hell really knows? But that's my thoughts on it, and I'm kind of losing my voice. I've been talking too much. I've been going out and talking too much right now, and the last few days, and yeah, my voice is a bit. But that's it. So this video is about 20 minutes long. That's enough. So I'll leave it at that. And if you have your thoughts, I normally don't do this because it sounds kind of whatever. But if you have your thoughts on the way of rock and roll, the way AI is going, the future of any sort of art, leave your opinions down, comment on it, and we'll talk about it. That's it. Okay, see you guys later. Take care. Bye.